Back in my mid to late 20s, I worked a job as a security guard at a Kmart supercenter in Iowa City, Iowa. Most of you probably never heard of Kmart before, but to put it in simple terms, just imagine a cheaper Walmart/Target. Business was booming back in the early 2000s, and nowadays a lot of Kmarts ended up closing down. My job was to keep watch of one that was currently in the process of relocating. It was a chill job, although a bit boring, as you'd be the only one in the store with nothing to do. This never really bothered me, as I'd always find myself playing games on my phone or texting a friend to pass time. Well, one day I had been scheduled to work a double, meaning I'd be working both the day and night shift. The reason for this was because the other security guard who did the night shifts quit on the spot and went to go make a living in real estate. Because apparently this guy's obviously never heard of a 2 weeks notice before, and they scheduled me until they could find another person. This got on my nerves pretty easily, and sitting in the dark making $14 an hour didn't help. That being said, I really didn't have a choice and bit my lip and agreed to work a double. Throughout the day, things went well for the most part, watching the movers relocate the shelves, equipment, etc. 7 p.m. comes around and I prepare myself for a long 10-hour night shift. Being all alone in an empty store with no light but a little office in the back is scary enough. Now let's fast forward till around 1 a.m. I'm sitting on my chair by the front when I hear one of the radios turn on in the back office. It's not uncommon for them to go off once in a while, as they tend to pick up signal from someone else on the same channel. Not thinking anything of it, I tend to my phone when I hear it go off again, this time with a much stronger signal. At that point, I get up and walk toward the back office when I hear this low, grainy voice say, "I can see you." My heart sank into the pit of my stomach as I heard him say this, and it was then where I asked who it was. After getting no response, I glance over to the back exit of the store, and due to the glow of the red exit sign, I was able to make out the silhouette of a person. However, for some reason, I don't think they saw me, and I played dumb by looking the other way and turning off all of the radios. I wasn't just gonna go back to my post with someone possibly dangerous in the building with me, so I did the only thing I could do. Right then, I turn around and start booking it toward the front entrance as I heard whoever it was trying to catch up. Thankfully, I made it out the door, locking it behind me. A few seconds later, I see this tall man dressed in all black run up to the front and put his hands on the window. He was not a pleasant-looking man. His eyes were wild and his grin was menacing. At that point, I called the police, where they thankfully arrived in a few minutes, where they went inside the building. However, like in most situations like this, whoever was inside the store with me was gone. Police concluded that they had simply left through the emergency exit. Needless to say, I continued my shift while a patrol car stayed in front just in case whoever it was came back. Till this day, I still can't get that man's face out of my head. It's just something you can't unsee. I stayed at that job for a month later before landing a new one that paid more and didn't require night shifts. I've never seen or heard from that man again, and I really hope it stays that way. While all of this was indeed a scary situation, one question still comes up that I can't seem to figure out the answer to. The store had several cameras that had night vision, and not one of them picked up the man by the exit, even though they were pointed at it. The police and I reviewed the footage and saw no one in the store, other than me. That was the reason as to what made me so scared, and it's also the reason why I will never work another night shift again. This took place in 2012 at a 7-Eleven gas station when I was a junior in college. I attended a community college in New York. Not the city, just the state itself. The reason I chose this school was to make it easier for me to transfer to the university I originally wanted. However, every college student knows that college isn't free and can definitely leave you with a large debt in your bank account. I received federal aid from state, but there was still a lot of tuition that I had to pay for. Because of this, I ended up getting a full-time job at a 7-Eleven working as a gas station attendant. It wasn't the best paying job, but it paid enough to help me get by while also paying off school. I've done tons of under-the-table stuff like a bouncer, a cleaner at bars, but I was really surprised that I was working this hard. For reference, I'm a male, and I was 20 at the time of the story. I had mostly worked night shifts, which I didn't mind doing as these were the shifts where you'd commonly have to deal with less people. 10 p.m. was around the time where you'd stop getting customers and traffic would start to die down. Anything past 10 p.m. was your occasional customers coming in for a late night snack or something. I'd say my shifts went relatively well until a night where I had to cover for someone who called in sick. It was annoying to say the least, but I realized it's a bigger paycheck at the end of the day. When working the night shift, we had to go ahead and shut the front door, turn off all of the lights, and operate from the window box. It was a quiet night with little to no cars on the road, and I had just gotten done wiping the counter. With nothing to do, I go behind the counter and decide to play some Sudoku to pass the time when I look out the window and saw a man by the gas pumps. He looked somewhat normal, although a bit lanky, and seemed to have taken an interest in the gas pumps for some reason. He wore a black long-sleeved shirt, cargo pants, and, out of all things, was carrying an empty Macy's bag. He casually walked around the pumps as if he were inspecting them. I wasn't sure what he was doing, but I kept a close eye on him. It also came to my attention that this man didn't have a car, nor did he arrive in one. It was almost as if he just walked up to the gas station. After all, this was located in an area that was notorious to druggies and meth heads, so I guess it wasn't all that uncommon. About a minute later, he proceeds to walk up to the window and says he needs pump 3. He throws his card into the box thing and I pull it in. Our practice for this was that if they gave us their card, we'd let them pump as much gas as they wanted and swipe their card afterwards. We try to go above and beyond for our customers, but the policy sort of changed for obvious reasons. I then see him walk toward pump 3, confused as to what he was doing since I didn't see a car. What I saw him do next is something that chilled me to the bone where all I could do is just watch. He proceeds to take the gas pump and begins to pour all of the gasoline on the actual pump itself while making this insane laugh. At this point, I hit this little pager we have under the desk that alerts the police in case of a fire or robbery. 20-year-old me sees this man take out a lighter and attempts to ignite it. By some stupid luck, the lighter isn't working, and I'm crouched down by the counter praying the police make it in time before this place goes up in flames. These pumps are extremely flammable, and I knew that if he had managed to light it, that it would have been over. The more he tried to light the lighter, the more irritated he became. And that was when I hear the sound of police sirens approaching. They get out of their patrol cars and tase him on the spot before he could start up the lighter. I come running out of the gas station, nearly crying, knowing that if they had arrived any later, I'd probably be dead. Both police and the fire department arrived on scene where they were thankfully able to remove the gas. At that point, I fall to my knees, bawling my eyes out as my body hit the concrete of the gas station. I was comforted by police and was taken to a hospital to check if I was exposed to any hazardous chemicals. I obviously ended work early that night, but still got paid for what I was owed. A week later, I got laid off from 7-Eleven, but ended up getting a huge severance package to pay for school. I ended up getting a new job shortly after that, after my previous employer wrote a glowing recommendation letter for me. While something good did happen, this also had a major impact on my mental health as I had to get years of therapy. It's been 10 years now, and this incident is still brought up by my parents from time to time. I'm now in my early 30s and have a lovely wife and have moved past it. I urge anyone reading this to cherish the time you have, as you don't know what will be your last day. Had that man managed to spark that lighter, I wouldn't be writing this right now. The whole gas station would have exploded, and that's exactly what I thought was gonna happen. I still don't know what his intentions were or why he did what he did, but to be honest, I don't want to know. I'd like to think that he was on something, but maybe that's just because I'd rather not think of the alternative. I still think about how it would have turned out had the police arrived even a minute later. About a year ago, in my final semester in college, I worked at a Shaw's grocery store in Boston, Massachusetts. For those of you who don't know what Shaw's is, it's basically a grocery store that's mainly based in the Northeast. I didn't have a car yet, so I mainly requested for day shifts as I've always been skeptical of the night. It wasn't that I hated them, it was more so the fear of what could happen, especially to a petite 5'7" girl like me. However, sometimes I'd be given a closing shift, much to my annoyance, as I had a 7:45 a.m. class and we closed pretty late. Whenever I did have a closing shift, we'd end up closing at 10, and it's about an hour's bus ride back home. My managers, being the jerks that they were, gave me a week of closing shifts knowing my situation. I was pissed, but whatever. It's a few $100s added to my paycheck, so I couldn't argue with that. It was a Thursday night, and I had just finished stocking a few chips as we had just gotten an extra shipment. It was me, my manager, and another coworker running the register. It's about an hour before we close, and the store's pretty much dead except for a few customers. I finish putting the chips on the shelves and get ready to clock out. Before doing so, my manager had told me to go outside and bring the shopping carts that were in the parking lot to the store. Living in a decent-sized city, it wasn't uncommon for careless people to leave their carts out in the open. As I'm grabbing a cart beside a car, a woman rolls down her window and says hello. With a friendly smile, I say hello back and asked if I could help her. In the car was a mom and what appeared to be her teenage daughter in the front seat. Right away, the mom seemed concerned, looking back and forth before telling me that they needed gas. I tell her there was a gas station just down the road, but she then interrupts me, asking if I could give her money for gas. She's explaining as to how she just came from another state and was in desperate need. Being a dirt poor college student, I barely made enough to pay for my own tuition. However, I didn't want to decline help to someone in need, so I take out my wallet and hand her a $5 bill. She stares down at the money and then back at me as if she wanted more when she said that it wasn't enough. I told her I was sorry and that was all I had. She then says in a more direct tone if I could get into her car and go down to the gas station to help her get gas. As I was about to respond, that's when I noticed the teenage daughter had been staring at me the whole time. She's sitting in the seat, giving me this dead stare while licking her lips as if she were planning on something. That was my cue to get out of there, as something wasn't right. Thankfully, my manager had come out, and when he saw the car, it immediately pulled out of the parking lot and drove off. I remember running up to him and thanking him for noticing. He also knew something was wrong, as he could definitely see the fear and panic of my face. My manager took a picture of the car and was able to identify the year and model of it. I worked at that Shaw's for a good year after that and never saw that car again.